a man barely days out of cancer surgery, a hammer in his hand, and the person who destroyed his family tied to a chair in front of him. This wasn't a nightmare. This was Emmerdale on the 15th of May, 2026, and if you thought this week couldn't get any more intense, tonight's episode proved you absolutely wrong. The Dales delivered something genuinely unforgettable this evening, and we are breaking down every single moment of it right here, right now. Welcome back to Emmerdale Echoes, your go-to destination for the latest Emmerdale drama, spoilers, storyline breakdowns, and all the unmissable moments from the village we love. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join thousands of fellow Emmerdale fans who never miss a thing. And if you've already watched tonight's episode and your jaw is still somewhere on the floor, don't worry, because so is ours. Tonight's episode was, without question, one of the most emotionally charged and dramatically explosive installments Emmerdale has delivered all year. From a cancer survivor bent on violent revenge, to a blackmailer who just can't stop pushing her luck, and a broken man trying to rebuild his life in the wake of a traumatic ordeal. The 15th of May, 2026 packed an extraordinary amount of raw, gripping storytelling into one single hour of television. So let's get into it. To fully understand just how monumental tonight's episode was, we need to go back a few weeks. Cain Dingle, the indestructible, fiercely proud patriarch of the Dingle family, played with extraordinary depth by Jeff Hordley, has been on one of the most emotionally devastating journeys in recent Emmerdale history. His diagnosis with prostate cancer rocked the village to its core, and the long road to surgery was filled with fear, vulnerability, and heartbreak. His beloved wife Moira, played by the always brilliant Natalie J. Robb, stood by his side through every agonizing moment, even as she carried a devastating secret of her own. Because here's what Cain didn't know until this week. Moira had been wrongfully arrested and sent to prison, and the man responsible for planting the ID documents that put her there was none other than Robert Sugden. Robert, Erin's husband, a man Cain had reluctantly accepted back into the fold. That betrayal, buried beneath layers of recovery and hospital visits, was always going to erupt. The only question was when. And tonight we got our answer. The episode opened with an atmosphere already thick with tension. Cain had only just returned home from hospital after his prostate surgery, a catheter bag quite literally strapped to his leg, a man still in physical pain but burning with something far more dangerous, rage. Earlier in the week, Moira had finally been backed into a corner. With Robert and Erin paying an uncomfortable visit to Cain during his recovery, the atmosphere in the room became impossible to ignore. Cain clocked it immediately. He demanded to know what Moira wasn't telling him, and she had no choice but to admit the truth. Robert had planted those documents. Robert had sent her to prison. The look on Cain's face in that moment was devastating television. Jeff Hordley once again reminded us why he is one of the finest actors in British soap opera. You could see the grief, the fury, and the absolute resolve all colliding at once. Moira begged him to rest. She pleaded with him to let it go, to focus on his health. Cain promised her he would. And of course, he had absolutely no intention of keeping that promise. Because while Moira believed her husband was resting at home, Cain had already quietly enlisted the loyal, gentle Sam Dingle to be his weapon. And tonight, that plan played out in brutal, breathtaking fashion. Robert was going about his day at Emmerdale Farm when he heard a noise from the barn. He went to investigate, and the next thing he knew, he was waking up bound to a chair in his own kitchen. Standing over him, hammer in hand, was Cain Dingle, catheter bag and all. The confrontation scene that followed was extraordinary. Cain didn't shout. He didn't rant. He was ice-cold, controlled, and utterly terrifying. Every word he delivered to Robert was measured, deliberate, and loaded with years of pain. He reminded Robert of every wrong. The farm, the manipulation, and now this, the worst of all, using Moira's freedom as a weapon. Robert, usually so composed, was visibly frightened. And who could blame him? When Cain Dingle looks at you the way he looked at Robert tonight, you know you are in serious trouble. The suspense of not knowing how far Cain would actually go kept viewers absolutely gripped. Would he use the hammer? Would he cross a line he could never come back from? The tension in those scenes was almost unbearable, and it made for genuinely compelling, edge-of-your-seat television. Meanwhile, on the other side of the village, Charity Dingle was facing a nightmare of a very different kind. Dr. Todd had already squeezed money out of Charity through blackmail, and the understanding had been that she would take the cash and disappear from Emmerdale for good. But tonight revealed just how dangerous it is to trust someone like Todd. Over a seemingly innocent lunch with Manpreet, who, bless her, simply cannot resist a bit of gossip, Todd extracted a crucial piece of information. Whatever Manpreet let slip during that conversation, it was enough to give Todd an entirely new angle of leverage. Because rather than heading for the door with her money in hand, Todd increased her demand to a staggering £10,000, framing it as compensation for the pension she claims Jacob cost her. The expression on Charity's face was priceless and heartbreaking in equal measure. She has scrambled, lied, and paid to make this woman go away, and now the price has doubled. The question hanging over her is whether she can even find that kind of money, and what will happen if she cannot. Jacob, meanwhile, found himself in an equally desperate situation. Having gathered the courage to make a formal complaint against Todd, he discovered she had already beaten him to it, filing her own complaint and backing it up with what appeared to be a damning file of evidence, including voice recordings. Jacob's attempt to reclaim control of his own life had been turned against him with ruthless efficiency. The despair on his face told the whole story. And then there was Bear Wolf. Following the extraordinary conclusion of the trial surrounding Ray's death, with Bear and Dylan both acquitted and Patty handed a 12-month suspended sentence, Bear tried to take his first tentative steps towards something resembling a normal life. Starting work at the depot alongside Mandy, it was clear the trauma of everything he had endured was far from behind him. The quiet, fractured moments Bear shared tonight were a reminder that in Emmerdale, the aftermath is often just as devastating as the event itself. Fan reaction online has been electric since the episode aired. Social media has been flooded with viewers absolutely stunned by the power of the Cain and Robert confrontation. Phrases like "Jeff Hordley is a national treasure" and "this is the best Emmerdale has been in years" have been trending, and it's not hard to see why. Many fans are also furious at Manpreet, again, for her inability to keep information to herself, with several pointing out, rather accurately, that she may have just made Charity's life significantly worse. The Todd storyline is generating huge debate, with many viewers convinced this blackmail spiral is far from over. What does all of this mean going forward? The most pressing question, of course, is what actually happened after the cameras pulled back on Cain and Robert. Did Cain go too far? And if he did, what are the legal and personal consequences for a man who has just survived cancer surgery? Robert being tied to a chair with a hammer-wielding man standing over him is not a situation that resolves quietly or neatly, and Emmerdale will surely be exploring those consequences in the days to come. For Charity, the path ahead looks increasingly bleak. Todd raising her demand suggests this blackmail storyline has several more dramatic chapters left to write. If Manpreet has inadvertently handed Todd fresh ammunition, Charity may soon be facing a crisis that money alone cannot solve. And for Jacob, with his complaint now turned against him, the question of how he escapes Todd's grip, and whether he even can, is set to drive one of the show's most compelling ongoing narratives. To sum up tonight, Emmerdale delivered an episode packed with emotional devastation, raw confrontation, and deeply layered storytelling. Cain Dingle proved once again that even at his most physically vulnerable, he is one of the most formidable forces in the Dales. Robert Sugden faced a reckoning that has been building for months. Charity is drowning, and Dr. Todd is proving to be one of the most deliciously villainous characters this show has produced in a very long time. So, what do you think? Was this the most emotional Emmerdale episode of 2026 so far? Do you think Cain went too far with Robert, or did Robert get exactly what he deserved? And just how deep into trouble is Charity going to get before Todd is finally stopped? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We absolutely love reading everything you have to say, and we do read every single one. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please give the video a thumbs up. It genuinely helps the channel more than you know. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Emmerdale Echoes so you never miss another recap, spoiler, or storyline deep dive. We are here for every twist, every tear, and every unforgettable moment from the Dales. Until next time, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.